spending about 6 years living in monasteries and practice centers. And I was celibate during that time. Obviously, for part of that time, I was a monk and so made commitments to be celibate. But the entire time I practiced with celibacy. So I ended up doing this 7-year run of celibacy. Wow, let me tell you, I learned some stuff about myself. That was intense. And so I just want to speak to that just a little bit and share a few things that surprised me and that supported me. And then I want to open it up for questions because it's such a rich topic. I'd love to hear how you all are practicing with your own sexualities and your own intimate choices and your own relationship to others is really what this mindfulness training comes down to. Whether we're having intercourse with other people or not, we're in intimate contact with a lot of people in our lives. And this training is inviting us to communicate and share those intimate moments in a very loving way. And loving in the Buddhist sense, true love in Buddhism being broken up into 4 elements of kindness, compassion, joy, and a combination of inclusivity and equanimity called upeksha. So we're being invited to bring a lot of mindfulness, to bring a lot of love to our interactions with other people. And that's hard. I'm just going to say it out. That's really hard. That is not easy. That's not easy. We're also animals who have a lot of really strong drives and hormones and desires to procreate, literal needs for physical intimacy, right? We get sick if we don't have enough touch in our lives, for example. We get sick. So this is complicated stuff. For myself, I learned a couple of important things during those 7 years. Number one, I learned that was possible. I didn't know if I could do it. I'm a hugger. I'm a toucher. I'm a sexual being. I spent 17 years as a professional massage therapist. Spent a lot of time touching people, more so than the average human being. I've touched thousands and thousands of people. In very intimate ways. That aspect of my life is very big, and not just because I'm half Latino and half Irish, although that's part of it too. Those are very, passionate and romantic cultures that I'm made up of, Mix a whiskey and a tequila and you don't have a person who's sitting in the corner by themselves, So yeah, that was the first thing that I learned, that was even available to me. That, because I was so connected during those years to very deep intentions to be mindful and to observe and to get to know myself really, really deeply, get to understand and therefore be able to skillfully love myself. Because I had those intentions and held them so dear, I was capable of it. I actually was. I went 7 years being celibate. So that was interesting right out of the gate. Wasn't sure I could pull that off. The second thing I learned was that we have this idea, right? That we learn in all these funny places, right? We learn, of course, first and foremost, for most of us, not everybody, what relationship is by observing our parents. And then maybe the other relationships in our blood family around us. That's kind of where it starts. And then depending on what country you're from and what culture you've been raised in, even what language you speak, right? because different languages and cultures hold the idea of partner differently. Brazilians carry a very different idea of what it is to be husband and wife than, say, Protestant Americans do. Very different. Even though they may be using some of the same words, and so we get this idea that we don't get to kind of come up with, right? That is sort of fed to us or indoctrinated into us by our culture and our early life experiences about what relationship is. And then as we mature into adolescence and adulthood, we start playing out that story. And maybe we stop and we kind of turn around, and with the help of spiritual counselors, therapists, very good friends, practices like this, maybe we examine those ideas and ask ourselves, like, are you sure? Is that right? Did that work for mom and dad? Like, do I want to repeat that just because it's what I know? Or is the opposite true? Like, was that a mess and really unbeneficial? And did that cause a tremendous amount of suffering for everybody involved? Maybe we do that work, but a lot of times we don't, right? A lot of times we don't. A lot of times we just kind of charge into this incredibly nuanced, incredibly complex aspect of our lives, somewhat mindlessly. And it doesn't feel like that, right? It doesn't feel like we're a half-blind, drunken person stumbling into a room, because everybody's doing it. So it feels very normal, right? It feels very normal. Like, well, everybody's just walking in here full of craving and fear and anxiety and desire, and they're just doing stuff. Sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. So when I took that huge break, I got, for the first time in my life, and quite late in life, mind you, like I'm almost 50. So I'm saying I did this 7 years in my 30s, right? In my 30s, up in, through mid to late 30s. So I was quite adult already. But I got, for the first time in my life, this bit of perspective, this bit of remove. And I got to see, like, wow, like, because when you step outside of something, you get this new view. And I got to watch all these people going through their romances and their dalliances and their, flings and their crushes and their disappointments and their breakups. And I got to see it kind of from way back here, because I wasn't in the pool. You know what I mean? I was in this different place. I had a different lens on my camera, one that I had never had on before. And holy cow, it was kind of horrifying. Like I watched all this pain and suffering and joy and extremity and excitement. And I got to see it like I had never seen it before. So that was the second thing that really surprised me. I didn't realize what a mess the whole thing was. Like normal baseline, like, okay, we're intelligent, reasonable adults trying to figure this out. I didn't realize, like, how just terribly organized and poorly communicated, and how much pain there was just built right into it. I got to see that more clearly than I ever had. And the last thing I want to talk about today, the third thing, because I do want to hear from you, is from that fresh perspective, right? All of a sudden, there I was in the same kitchen I'd been in my whole life, right? This same world of sex and intimacy and love. But I was all of a sudden standing up on a chair. Like I was looking at it from this very different perspective that I had never had. And if I was to talk about the one thing that I took away from it, that I think will change the way I will be an intimate creature for the rest of my life, it's that when I examined the story that I had been operating under, when I took an honest look with the benefit of all that remove, at the story I was telling myself, it basically boiled down to this. Like, I have this list of needs, and I need another person to meet them. And if I don't find that person and don't commit to that person, don't succeed in connecting forever to that person, then I'm going to fail. I'm going to suffer because I have this list of needs and I need that other person to meet them. I wouldn't, prior to those 7 years, have described what I was doing when I was dating and all of that. I know I was even married and divorced once. I would not have described what I was doing during all of those years that way. But when I took that 7-year pause, I saw it so clearly. And so for the first time, seeing that story, I had the opportunity to practice with it. And, as we do, I asked myself, are you sure? Are you sure? And for myself, the answer was and is this ongoing investigation where I still have that list, right? I still have that list of things that, I really want. I really enjoy, falling asleep in bed with another human being. Like, oh my God, like there's something really deep inside me that enjoys that feeling. And obviously that's not something I can provide for myself. But man, let me tell you, the majority of the things on that list did not fall into that category. The majority of the things on that list that I was projecting onto partner after partner after partner, like a real need for safety. I have a real need for safety. I grew up in a very traumatized way. And wow, I was looking for another person whose company and whose commitment would make me feel safe. And now I don't think that exists. I don't think that exists. I think that I can have a really healthy relationship with myself that has a tremendous amount of safety in it. I can be really generous, honest, and kind, to go back to words we used last week, with myself. And then if I'm providing that kind of safety, right? If I'm treating myself and looking at every moment that I'm in a very generous way, looking at the best of it, giving myself the benefit of the doubt. If I'm looking at the moment and holding the moment in a very honest way, if I'm not lying to myself or pretending that X is Y or that black is white, if I'm being really kind to myself and just acknowledging, like, wow, this is hard, like getting out of the bed in the morning and being a human being, at least for me, is hard. And 50% of the time sucks. That's my marker. I'm looking to be in positive, in joy, in excitement 50% of the time, but the other 50% of the time things suck. Putting those two together and accepting them as happiness. So if I'm doing all that hard work and learning how to do it as I go, because who knows how to do that? I don't know anybody that knows how to do that perfectly. We're all just figuring it out together. What did Baba Ram Das say? We're all just walking each other home. We're all just walking each other home. And it's a process. And so if I'm really doing that work and providing safety and creating safety for myself, which has to include acknowledging, accepting, and loving the times I fall short and that I do not provide safety for myself. And then I treat myself poorly, and then I abandon myself, and then I'm a jerk to myself, because that still happens every single day. If I'm doing all of that, right, just here as Dave, then, right, I can spend time with another person who hopefully is doing their version of that. And we can produce this collective safety that is amazing. That is amazing and can be so beautiful and so powerful. But you see how different that is than the first story I was telling myself? That I'm unsafe, and the only way to get safe is to find somebody who's safe. Right? You see the difference? Well, so if I was to take away one thing, I could talk about this for hours, right? We're talking about 7 years of my life. But if I was to share the one thing I wanted to share is that the majority of the things on that list, not only can I provide for myself, but I can only provide them for myself. The majority of the things on the list that I was desperately looking for somebody to give me or do for me, it's impossible for them to do. It's impossible for them to do. I didn't know that. I didn't know that until I practiced that way for that long.